Welcome to RTE-Travel Talk, the show that talks to travel professionals around the world. Have you ever dreamed about crossing the Atlantic in style? Well, today you're in for a treat. We're diving into the world of transatlantic and transoceanic cruises. Those iconic voyages that offer travelers a chance to slow down, unwind, and truly enjoy the journey. But what makes them special? Are they right for you? And what do you need to know before booking? To help us navigate these questions, we're joined by Mary Ellsworth, a travel expert with Cruise and Travel Experts. Mary has extensive experience in helping travelers find their perfect cruise. If you enjoy the journey with us today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. And if this video has got you inspired, give it a thumbs up or drop a comment and join the conversation. Thanks for being part of our travel community, whether you're a longtime fan or just dropping by. We really appreciate it. And now, on with the show. Hi, Mary. Welcome back to RTE Travel Talk.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
It's great to have you back with us, Mary. So, Mary, one of the questions we get a lot, and there's a lot of conversations about of late on RTE Travel Talk, are transatlantic or sometimes what they call repositioning cruises.
Right.
What are they? Where do they go? Are they a good deal? So I was kind of hoping today if you and I could spend a little time and explore this subject. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Perfect. So just exactly what is a transatlantic cruise, Mary, and how is it different from other cruises?
So traditionally, transatlantic cruise was pretty much getting from point A to point B,
Right.
usually from the US to Europe. And it's kind of expanded a lot since then.
Okay.
It used to be just to get there, and now they've kind of gotten some of them gotten longer where you can go farther distances, go to different ports along the way too. But the traditional was either New York to Europe or Florida to Europe, basically.
Okay. Now, is it something that runs all year round? Like I've heard that it's really just at certain times of the year when certain cruise companies want to move their ships over to Europe or vice versa.
Yeah, most of the cruise lines, they are just seasonal. So like from the States to Europe, you'd be leaving usually March or April-ish.
Hmm.
And then coming back, you'd usually leave around September, October, sometimes November. Cunard, the Queen Mary 2, and she pretty much does them year round.
Oh, does she? So
Yeah,
Cunard is really the only one left that does it year round.
correct. Yes.
Kind of probably harkens back to their days being the White Star Line and
Yep.
offering just it was a main source of traffic to get
Yep.
from Europe or England over to the United States.
That's it exactly. Yes. So yeah, she still does that, and that's pretty much the only one. The other cruise lines sometimes will have a midsummer kind of thing where they will
Right.
do something, but for the most part, it's those seasonal offerings.
So typically, how long a voyage are they, Mary?
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that they kind of start to be extended a little bit, but
Yeah.
typically,
Typically, it's 7 to 14 days. That's the
okay,
average. But now they go into like 35 days again with a lot more stops and things like
wow,
that.
yeah,
But the shortest ones are 7 days.
right on. Is there a particular time of year for
Mhm.
transatlantics?
Weather is always a predicament.
Yep.
So I think anything avoiding the main winter times are good, but you just never know what's going to happen. The weather can change at any point.
Well, sailing that North Atlantic route, I can recall hearing the stories from my dad back in the day in the war, sailing across the North Atlantic. You never knew on any given day
Mhm.
whether it
Sunny
was
and
going to be
warm. Windy.
sunny and warm or you were in the middle of a gale. So,
Yeah.
but again, these ships are so big and they're stabilized now, it's not a big deal.
Most of them are. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll still feel some motion on some of them if it
Yeah.
gets really bad, but most of them are pretty stable.
What are the most typical ports that transatlantics leave from?
So normally the average ones or the typical ones are New York, Florida area, Fort Lauderdale, Miami.
Hmm.
And then Europe wise, it's usually London, which Southampton. There's some that do Barcelona, some that do Rome, and Amsterdam.
Right.
Those are the main ones. They are expanding, and some of the cruise lines now do ports out of the Caribbean.
Okay.
A couple of them that will do them out of actually South America, maybe out of Rio, and some of the more interesting ports in Europe that they'll go to now is like maybe the Canary Islands, Portugal, Barcelona, those kind of places. So it's expanded again a lot from what it used to be.
Well, it sure sounds like it has. What about the itineraries? Which cruise lines do you think offer the best itineraries?
That's a tough one
Yeah.
because it really depends on what your goal is.
Right.
Again, if you just want to get to London and you don't want to fly, Cunard is a great option. If you want to maybe see some of Europe, all of the major cruise lines have great itineraries. Regent, Seabourn, Oceania has some great ones. Holland America. So there are quite a few of them out there. It's just a variety of which ones you like and what ports you want to go to.
So it really comes down to what you want
Yeah.
out of your vacation,
Exactly. And a lot of
right?
people, of course, when they're doing this, they're going to spend a few days in Europe or vice
Yeah.
versa in the US before, doing one of the other things.
You mentioned the transatlantic as an option to
Yeah.
actually flying. That's a novel approach.
People love it. A lot more people are doing it just because, flying has gotten A, expensive,
Yep.
B, just a hassle where, you can sit on a ship and be treated like royalty
Yeah.
and eat wonderfully and not have to deal with the airlines.
Instead of shoehorned into a
Yeah,
flying tube.
exactly. That's so true.
What about the number of sea days?
That's the one thing that a lot of people I think are hesitant about.
Right.
I think that kind of scares people because they think they're going to be stuck and there's nothing to do and they're going to be bored. These ships have so many activities. They'll have fitness classes that you can take. They'll have computer classes, photography, wine tastings. They have games, bingo, which I love. They'll have trivia nights or trivia days, even. So there's a lot of things to do on the ship itself.
Long story short, you're not gonna be
Yeah,
bored.
not at all.
And another good example would be Cunard,
Uh-huh.
and they're famous for their ballroom dancing.
Yeah, that's a huge one too, and they'll do, dancing lessons as well, which is big for a lot of people too.
I've heard over the years that sometimes they can be a really good deal. Are they more affordable than other cruise options, or is that kind of a misnomer?
No, actually, it actually is true. I think the cruise lines kinda get the idea that you're gonna probably spend more on board because you're not getting off the ship at all,
True.
so they tend to lower the price points, on the transatlantics. They tend to be a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way because that's right. You're kind of a captive audience for a lot
You
longer
are
time, and you're gonna spend more in the casino if there is one. You're gonna spend more on onboard
beverages.
shopping and specialty restaurants.
Exactly.
What type of traveler would enjoy a transatlantic cruise?
They tend to favor older people. I mean,
Okay,
not necessarily old, but just
yeah,
older people just because they have more time
right.
to get from point A to point B and to spend some time wherever they go. But again, now we're starting to find a lot more families because it
Okay.
does get them closer together. And they again, the people who just don't want to fly or deal with flying. And I know we're talking transatlantics, but there's now transoceanic cruises that a lot of people are using as a way to get from point A to point B, where it's like Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia, or vice versa. There's different
Wow.
opportunities now.
So it's just not transatlantic, it's transoceanic,
Yeah, popular lately is going from the West Coast, Seattle, Vancouver
right?
to Tokyo. It's a great way to get to Asia.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
That'd be fascinating,
people
and there
love
would
it.
be quite a number of sea days there.
There are, but they do actually usually go up through Alaska. So you have
Yeah.
ports in Alaska before heading
Okay.
over. So it's really actually quite interesting itineraries.
Oh, fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. So are there any kind of challenges or drawbacks that you might run into with this type of a cruise?
Again, weather, rough
Right.
seas, that's the biggest concern. These ships are so capable of handling them, so
Yeah.
it's not a huge issue. But if you are prone to seasickness, might be a little concerned. You might want to take precautions. That's pretty much the main concern.
Now, you mentioned we're seeing more and more families on board keep taking advantage of this. We think about Cunard and they're famous for
Yeah.
the ballroom dancing,
Mhm.
and it's kind of more kind of the classic cruise experience on board Cunard. For families, do those big resort type ships that Royal Caribbean deploys, do they
Yeah,
do transatlantics as well?
they
Like
do. Royal
they do.
Caribbean, Celebrity,
Yeah.
Norwegian, Disney even does some.
So basically, if you've got a favorite cruise line, there's a
Yep,
very
you
good
can find them.
chance that
Yes,
if you look in the right place, you're gonna find a transatlantic or a transoceanic on board.
exactly.
Oh,
Yep.
fantastic. Well,
Okay.
Mary, this is fantastic information. Is there anything else you might like to add before we sail on out of here?
Again, it's a great option for people. Book early is always a good idea.
Well, I'd also tend to think on these cruises because they're limited in number, booking early is extremely wise because the
Exactly.
availability will be limited as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Does something like this, does it book years in advance? Like,
Yeah,
can you book them years in advance?
you can actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have clients that have just recently booked 2027.
yeah.
They were just waiting for itineraries to come out. So you can book them way in advance.
Wow. Well, Mary, that's wonderful. If folks wanted to find out more information about a transatlantic or transoceanic cruise or, any other cruise vacation, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can always call me 800-632-3659. Or they can go to our website, which is Cruise and Travel Experts, all spelled out, and see all the agents that work there.
That's super. I'll leave those links in the description for those folks that might like to reach out. But before we go, I always like to live vicariously through the travels of all these wonderful people I get to interview on this show. So I have to know where you're off to next.
There are a few inaugural ships coming out this year, so I'm hoping to be able to sneak on one of those.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
If you do the next inaugural, we'll have to
Yeah,
have you back to talk about just what exactly is an inaugural cruise and why they're so interesting. How does that sound?
I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, with that, I'm just going to wish you safe and happy travels on all your future destinations and cruises. May the wind always be at your back, and I hope to see you on the Lido deck on a transatlantic cruise sometime soon in the future.
Thank you again.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye. And that about wraps it up for today, folks. A very special thanks to my guest, Mary Ellsworth of Cruise and Travel Experts. If you'd like to reach Mary, I will leave her contact information in the description. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can send a question to questions@realtravelexperts.com, visit our website, realtravelexperts.com, or simply leave a comment. We always respond. And as always, folks, if you enjoyed this content, a like, subscribe, share, and a ring of the bell is certainly appreciated and helps other folks just like you to find our content. So until next time, happy travels.